For joining us for the April 16th, 2025 Orange Staff Working Group meeting. We've got a agenda today where we'll talk about the existing annual work program with an amendment, and we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming annual work program, and then we will also get some updates on a couple items and project sponsors from our members. So with that, I'll lead off the roll call. I'm Doug Plachinsky, representing the Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, the designated MPO for the Western Triangle. And then let's go around the table in the room, and then we'll go back to anybody else that joins us online.
All right. Well, I want to introduce our new Deputy Commander for Transportation. Her name is Sarah. So yes, as we go around the room, I like how you did that, Doug. Say who you are, where you from, so that she would understand that. All right. You want to say?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Williamson, and I am the new Deputy Director of Transportation for Orange County. And this is my second week, so still getting to know some things.
I bet. Where'd you come from, Sarah?
The city of Raleigh.
Oh, okay, good. So you know the area, you know. Yeah.
All right. I'm Darlene Weaver, the Transportation Planning Manager for Orange County.
I'm Tina Moon, also with the Town of Barbaro and Planning.
Caroline Dwyer, Planning Manager, Chapel Hill Transit.
I'm Meg Scully with Go Triangle.
Steven Schlossberg, Tax District Administration, Go Triangle.
And then I think we have some people online, Josh, Matt.
Yeah, Josh Mail with the Town of Chapel Hill.
Maddie for Town of Hillsborough.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Do we know of any adjustments to our agenda today?
So Doug, I'm not sure if it's Steve, by the way. I'm not sure if this is an adjustment to the agenda, but I do have something specifically regarding the work program. So I'll defer to you. Would you rather me bring it up during the work program, or should I just kind of discuss now?
The proposed FY26 work program?
Yes.
Why don't you talk about it when we get to that point on the agenda?
Right.
Under FY26 annual work program. So we can catch up to you then on that. All right. Well, hearing no adjustments that we're going to make, is there any public comment? Is there anybody in person or online? Not hearing any. Let's move into the staff working group administration, and we'll start with the March minutes. Darlene.
All right. So everyone, do y'all see any adjustments or anything? I'm gonna come back to the agenda, Doug. As far as the minutes for March, did I miss anything? Okay, because I know we actually talked about the Q4 amendments last time, and then we went over the annual work program, made some more adjustments to that, and then everyone talked about, you know, their public engagement and communication. And then I think, Meg, you provided us some updates, or was it Jay? One of y'all provided us some updates about, you know,
It would have been me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everybody gave us updates about what's going on in that area.
Great. Could we have a motion for approving the minutes from March?
Move to approve.
I got a motion from Hillsborough, support.
Second, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline from Chapel Hill. If any are opposed? No opposition, motion carries. Next is the FY25 Q4 annual work program amendment, and this item is to recommend approval to the Orange County Board and then the Go Triangle Board. So, Darlene, are you explaining this item?
Yes. So we did review this last time. It's the same information that was in our minutes, but I think we had to make some adjustments towards that. So it's the mod for Orange County. I know Go Triangle had the paratransit. And y'all had something else too. Tap, right. And so that was the only amendments that we had, and we updated that information. So now we just need the approval of that, unless you have something.
I
Caroline.
just have a question, just to
Okay.
confirm, those were changes made since the last time we saw the draft? Okay.
Yes,
Thanks.
yes.
Could you forgive me, since I'm not as into transit as everyone else. Can you just remind me, for the OPT, the mod, what is the difference between the five? Oh, I get it, never mind. So one had to do with service and the other had to do with buying vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. I just wanted to make sure I could, if I was asked, I could answer. Thanks.
Yes.
And this was out for public comment, or it was?
Yes, it
any
already,
comments received?
no,
No, okay.
I didn't get anything from Nish. Did you get anything from Nish about public comments received?
No, I
before
did
you-
not.
Okay,
And this is going to your Board of Commissioners in May.
yes.
Take you to the 14th or the 6th. I know that's two ends of the spectrum.
The second meeting of May, which would be the 18th,
Okay,
I think,
just like confirm. It's
the
there.
third week of May.
Okay. Schedule is up like a computer. This is work session, business for today.
Well, great. It sounds like we're in consensus on the proposed Q4 FY25 amendment. Do we have a motion recommending approval?
Okay, Meg.
And then
Move.
support?
I'll second, Tina. Or
Tina.
Barbara.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, we're recommending approval unanimously. Okay,
Can I just
next.
ask a quick question?
Meg has a question.
Just logistics. I'm just trying to find the packet in the emails so that I can.
It came from Emily.
It
Okay,
came from
thank
Emily this time because I was out and I asked Emily to send it for me
Okay, thank
so that
you.
everybody
Find
would
it, let
get
me
it.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, we can forward it to you.
There, I have it. I have it. Came right
Okay.
up.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Hey, for what it's worth, Meg, I accidentally deleted my meeting invite, needed it resent earlier today, so it's just how it is. All right, so the final FY26 annual work program. This is for information. Why don't we talk about the work program and the material we have, and then Steve, you can bring us up to speed with what you wanted to discuss after we review the annual work program that was included in the packet.
All right. So as far as the annual work program, I'm going to it on the screen. I know we made a lot of adjustments to the annual work program. So based off on y'all review of the annual work program, do you still have any things? I know, Steve, you're going to bring up something
Yeah.
outside of what Steve is going to bring up. Do you see any other adjustments that we need to make?
Were there changes between this version and the last version we saw?
As far as yes,
Okay,
and that's what
you're
Steve,
gonna talk about?
Well, the changes haven't been done. That's what I'm talking about.
yes,
Okay, so there will be, but
There
there
will.
are no changes from the last version, is that right?
no,
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
So the only thing might have been increased cost of existing service, but that was in the minutes. So from last.
Right, and that was, that was gonna be a question too, is we resolved all of that?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that on the tax district stuff.
Great,
Resolve is a loose word, but we took care of it for
Okay.
25 and 26.
address.
yes.
Address.
Manage. Swept under the rug.
There you go.
Just kidding.
What about you, Megan, Tina, and Matt online, and Josh?
I'm looking now and I know I submitted some comments and I'm not necessarily seeing them, but I know some of them were suggestions that we do this perhaps next time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at this page.
Well, you said previously about showing the impacts to the towns, even if they're not directly getting money.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's page 19 for the, at
I'm on page
yeah.
19. Okay.
Yeah, so that's summary.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
throughout the document, and this really illustrates it beautifully, is we have the sponsoring agency for the projects, but we don't have like the beneficiaries of the projects.
Okay.
So like to make the point, like Go Triangle sponsors projects, but you know, Hillsborough, Orange County, Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Mebane, you know, residents are all beneficiaries of either a service or a capital project in those jurisdictions. So I think that would best illustrate, yes, Go Triangle's doing the project, but who's benefiting? You know, I mean, the whole purpose of this is for the community to benefit from transit. And so I think, and this is true of all the transit plans, we've kind of missed that message. And I think it's real important here. And it's extremely important in Wake as well, you know, so when somebody, an elected official, for example, from Hillsborough looks at this, they're like, oh, that's right. Yeah, Chapel Hill runs service over here, but Triangle runs service over here, that, you know, whatever. And they understand that there are benefits from other project sponsors. So we avoid somebody just looking and adding up a total saying, well, why is so-and-so getting X amount and somebody else getting X amount? It's like, doesn't matter who's doing the project as much as who's benefiting from the project, really.
Can I make
So
a
that's my point.
recommendation, like maybe early in the fiscal year, like the coming fiscal year, that we dedicate some time on an agenda in this group to maybe like walk through the current year's work plan to like identify those types of things, Meg, and then maybe we could like, I don't know. I don't think we need a subcommittee. This is a small. Work as a group to maybe like identify some changes that we would want to make in the work plan for the next, like the one that we'll start working on, as opposed, because I feel like what we kind of try to do is like reverse engineer it after we like submit, right? So because I've like, there's definitely like a list of things that I sort of have running too that I think would be like beneficial for not just like our own purposes, but for public information. I think it goes like some of what you're saying, Meg. And then also I think part of that would be like evaluating the various project requests that come in so that we have some like documented methodology versus like we looked at it and like nodded our heads, you know, something that justifies the decision making that's happening here. And like maybe also some thresholds, right? Because that came up this time also. Like, is there some ceiling that we hit where it's like, okay, that maybe needs to be an amendment to the transit plan versus like something we're kind of trying to like do through an annual work plan? And then
It all sounds wonderful.
Yeah, maybe like in August or September.
yeah, early, right before we start doing the project sheets. And then also just to keep like plant the idea that we're probably getting close to the 5-year update for the transit plan.
We are.
So that might be something to put some funding in for, I guess that would be 27
Yeah.
or an amendment for 26, either way. Because I think that work started in 2020, the last time.
But it was different last time because that was the NPO was one.
That's
point.
right.
Correct.
Yeah, so it'll be a little
It'll be
different.
the county, I guess, this time.
Yeah.
So just piggybacking on that, would you envision, I'm trying to think of, some things would really lend themselves to a map in terms of visual, but service, same? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of how you would convey that without one, you know, we might have to do a series of maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
think we could definitely, I mean, when I think about this, it's sometimes in my mind, it's hard and not the full story when you just separate only transit plan funded service on a map, because we're building a network.
Yeah.
And so we may only add a little bit here, a little bit there, but collectively the network gets stronger.
Right.
And so, you know, it makes sense sometimes, maybe we have two maps. One is here's your full Orange County network, all systems, all routes, and then we could say, here's the list of what the transit planner, here's another visual, whatever works best. But I think another thing that would be real exciting, and these are all details we can get to, but you know, we're going to Go Triangle will be increasing the frequency of 400, 405.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, as far as we can
Huge.
tell, it's like the first real regional route in the state with that level of frequency on a regular basis. Like I can't, CAPS would be the only other one. And I can't find anything. Every once in a while they hit a 15-minute, but and then the next run is 20 minutes away. Like they have some funky
Mhm.
scheduling, but so I think that's a fair statement. And so, that on a map somehow screaming that, like, okay, here's something that's really good for
Not
Orange.
just good, but I think like a predecessor step to like exploring that connection, right? Like that we lost with the light rail, where it's like, maybe you don't have to jump right away to the light rail, but it's like, hey, you prove that this can work. What do we do next, right? So yeah, and the more we document that, the
Yeah.
better
Yes.
it is for all of us when it comes time to justify those types of
Yeah,
um
yeah,
kind
I
of
agree.
investments, right?
Yeah. And we do have programs, some pretty significant investments to then support more work on that
Yep.
quarter.
Yes. We should connect on that too with the
Yeah.
D route and the
Yeah.
J and all the
Yeah.
other pieces.
And we have some bus stops that will allow us to reroute and make it more of a direct route into campus rather than Franklin Street. Like there's a bunch of stuff that's in this plan. But we'll tell my story.
Technical question. So I know that as somebody who does more capital projects and service, I sometimes get frustrated with the forms. And
That's add it to the list.
well, and part of the reason for that is for capital projects, because you're not just adding a percentage each year, you have like an initial cost.
In a year.
And then you've paid out some of that, but you still, when you look at the NPO or when you work with DOT and you have an agreement, you still have an initial cost. And so when you amend to add more money, you are then adding to your initial cost, which makes this form a little bit challenging because I have to figure out, well, how much have we paid out? How much has been reimbursed through this group? And spend some time kind of figuring that out. Fine. The point of this saga is so then under a base year versus cumulative, in my mind, cumulative meant how much had been earmarked for the project in its entirety, not just for that year. Maybe I'm reading that wrong.
Yeah, well, so if you're,
I like your thinking.
well, if you're submitting the actual form once a year, if you're not asking for new funds, there's nothing to be filled out. So it's only incremental funds. So if you have a Greenway project, which is a bad example, but we're in Orange, so you have a Greenway project and you get approval in
Yeah.
2020, and you're not asking for more money, there's literally nothing you need to do.
Okay,
It's if you need more money that we then ask you to fill out. So if you asked for $1 million in 2020, you didn't spend it, you didn't do anything, you're good with that million. There's nothing you need to do. If you need $1 million, but then you need an extra 200,000, that's when you need to do the form. The reason the form is consistent is because we do it in all three locales. So we want to make sure, or all three transcripts. So we want to make sure that whatever the form is in Orange is the same as Durham, is the same as Wade for economies of scales for the tax district. Plus someone like Go Triangle who has to fill out 3 different forms. It's easier for them to just be able to fill out the same forms. One thing we are working with, partly with internally Go Triangle, but something also on the tax district side we're thinking about is kind of a process where it's easily automated. So like a dashboard or something along the lines that either through Access or, someone else who I'm trying to bring on. I've been trying to hire people, but it's very hard to hire people these days. Or even working with other partners on putting together some kind of database where it's easy to update items and not. Regarding the carry forward stuff, so I know that like there's some stuff that's in Orange and they put things in. One thing we are going to ask, and I was going to put this in my financial update, but I might as well say it now, is either myself or Paul Kingman, who's also on, will in the next probably month or so reach out to all the partners since we already reimbursements and that all that good information is out. We're going to ask you for Q4 estimates. So you're going to have year to date through March, but then we're going to ask you what your Q4 estimate. We will go to the Go Triangle Board of Trustees that signs the ordinance, say here are the funds we estimate to reauthorize, and then we true it up in May. So for example, in next month's board meeting or this month's May's board meeting, we'll be truing up what we rolled over in 2024. That stuff is already, those numbers have already been in your reimbursement templates for a while. We just like to bring increased cost of existing service and that amount at the same time, because we don't want to go to the board every month with that stuff. But going to your point, and we'll reiterate again, and I know that's all kind of still a new process. Only new capital funds that are needed need a project sheet. So-
But I guess going back to your example, so the cumulative would only be 25,000, not 1,025,000, or, sorry, it was 250. That was the new
It
money.
would
but
only be the million that you were approved.
That was what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Wouldn't the cumulative be 1,250,000?
If you ask for 250,000,
Yeah.
that's
I think that's why I'm confused, because
Okay.
some of our existing projects, the cumulative is just the new amount, not the full.
oh, whatever you have left over, right? Like, so we're not gonna put, so if you ask for $1 million.
Yeah.
And you spend 700,000. The amount that's going over the next year will only be 300,000.
Okay, so the cumulative would be the carryover.
Yes, what you have.
And the new money, but it
Yes.
wouldn't be the total
No, it would
budget.
not be the total.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
if you need the total, we do have that on the tax district side. But what we want to make sure is that the partners realize that you only have 300,000 left. You don't
Okay.
have 1,200,000. We
Okay.
want to avoid confusion.
Okay, I still may want to double check some of this, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think we need to do a class
Yeah.
on
All
just
the things.
filling out the
Yeah.
project.
We do
sheet.
that every year, though.
Well,
But we
I
can do it
mean-
again.
I mean, we don't really do it. Like, maybe people need to see hands-on, like, so we talk through it, right? But sometimes maybe we might do a class, we got a little computer screen up here, everybody log in
Work
or
session,
something, huh?
Like a work
Well,
session where
If
we're
there
actually
could be
filling them
some
out.
materials that explained it, because if
Yeah.
if people in this group are
Mhm.
familiar with it
Yeah.
and there's questions, I can only imagine if the public was
Yeah.
to look at the packet, what they might ask.
Yeah.
So something that would be at the level that the public could digest
Yeah.
to, that would be very brief. I don't want it to, I'm not.
No, it's okay. And we actually have something like that we give out, but there's still confusion, I guess, on top. But Paul, if you're on, why don't we set something up either August or September to just kind of do a actual walkthrough?
Can I add something?
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that?
sure.
I think one other thing that would be really helpful to add in would be calculating your cost per hour. Like
Mhm.
walking through that for each agency.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So
Mhm.
So that's,
Well,
yeah,
'cause
that's
I know
different
there's
than,
requirements,
than,
right?
than the project report. But yes, I do think
Totally
that's in this,
different,
I do think that's.
But depending on the project, you supposed to add it to the sheet.
The
Well-
cost per hour? Yes, but
Yes.
you
It's the
need the cost per
calculation.
hour. It's the calculation of the cost per
Right.
hour, right? So, and I think there's been some changes too, right, to the requirements. And
Mhm.
I think we just want to make sure that we're all using the right numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Because we've discussed that a lot,
times.
a couple of times.
That would be really.
So that would
Okay.
fall on just so Go Triangle, just to kind of reiterate and not to jump on Doug or Sarah's role here, but that would be like Go Triangle explaining this is how we get cost per hour. Chapel Hill explaining this is how we get cost per hour.
No, I think
and
it would be,
OPT.
here's how you have to calculate cost per hour based on the ILA
Yeah,
and.
we
the-
do have a cost per hour policy.
That's right. So like, let's walk through that
Okay.
and make sure that like everybody has the information to calculate
Yeah.
that. And then here's your number.
So I would go to the county on that, because as staff working
Mm-hmm.
with administrator, it would be their responsibility to go over that policy.
Not just go over it. Like, I want a
To get-
work
right,
session. and
right,
I
right.
don't care if we have to pay and put money
Right.
into the transit plan to do this. Like,
Yeah.
if we need to bring someone in to do it, like, let's do that. So that we have a good number, that everybody's working from the same set of assumptions.
And in our situation, it would not be me. I mean, I'll be
Sure.
here, but we need our like finance.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
right, same.
Yeah.
So I think it would be more of a Go Triangle Orange County collaboration.
No, no,
with-
no, no,
You talking
no,
about, which
no,
part you
we're
talking
ju-
about?
just Go Triangle from the system perspective.
Right,
Yeah, so anybody, us, OPT, Chapel Hill Transit, we all have cost per hour, so our staff
do.
need to be here, but chances are the planning staff and the finance staff for the
Yeah.
agency, because that's typically who would amass those costs, like, it's not the planners who say, okay, this is what we have this year, this is what, we're doing.
Doug, are you trying to jump in?
Yeah, why don't we get a date on the calendar for August or September, and then we take some time separately in July to set up a meeting, and you guys can workshop through
things
through
underway.
this then.
Yeah, and I think there's been some things happening around that before. I'm just not up to speed on them yet.
not
Some
really.
related things. No.
No, there's just a lot of confusion on cost per hour. Like, obviously, Go Triangle does it the same way in all three counties. But honestly, OPT, they go up and down. It's like $50, then it goes to 85, then 120, then back to
Well, if we
85.
could hold some time further out and then dedicate some time to figuring out what goes into the big chunk.
And Darlene
Yeah.
can probably show you, there's actually a cost per hour policy
It is.
in Durham and Orange.
I mean, ideally, we would want it consistent with weight too. So
Right, yeah, Wake
Yeah.
just
But,
doesn't have a
that's
policy.
good. That's a big task to bite off when right now we're just talking about going through practicing filling out the worksheets for the work program.
Right.
Yeah, so
So-
what's going back to your point, Doug, so Paul Kingman will set something up in the fall to literally just walk through. And we'll be here in person and we could just walk through the process on how we do it. And our guide, if our training material is not up to par, 'cause I know that was stuff that I guess Priscilla and him kind of did previously, but we could then just kind of renovate it through. But we are looking to streamline just in general, so even on top of that, to make it easier to update.
Sure.
And
Okay.
Steve, this is Paul Kingman, just to add on to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can check with Stephen Mott at Campo, because he kind of does the training a lot for that on the Wake County side. So we do a little bit, we put the worksheet together, just kind of explaining it, but I think Steve Mott works with each of the partners directly, filling out the form and making sure it's right. So I could see if he has some training materials as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So that is something theoretically that the county's supposed to do. Because they are lead of the work program, we do create the sheet. And something we previously, meaning the tax district did was roll sheets over. We're not gonna do that next coming year. That's gonna be each person's responsibility if that's needed. But that is something, he brings up a good point, that as lead agency of the actual work plan or program, that falls into that responsibility. So theoretically, I guess Darlene or Sarah or Nish would have to kind of run that through, but we don't mind obviously assisting. And, as Paul mentioned, we could reach out to Stephen Mott. Campo does a pretty good job of walking through that process too.
But I think we need to really partner on that,
Mhm.
because even if there's multiple lead agencies
Yeah.
and it's one form coming
Yeah.
from you all, then that
Mhm.
collaboration can help us to be consistent.
Yeah. Plus, obviously as you just started, I wouldn't say, okay.
And then I have one more question. Isn't there like a cost per hour true up that we do at the end of the year?
Yeah, so what we do is,
Do that.
every,
I think I've ever done that. Like, I'm a little confused by that, but if
Yeah.
this is different than the annual work plan, we can talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that some other.
It
time.
is
So,
different.
Let's.
It-
get
yeah.
into this then.
should be doing it.
I know,
Yeah, big time.
But I think you guys get pretty close to your end dollar, so.
which goes back to like the cost per
What's
hour
in there.
question,
Right.
right?
What's
So,
in there. I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
because like
Yeah.
we maybe calculate it different than the policy for different reasons, right?
You
Like,
hire your own drivers, right? You're not.
Yeah.
we do, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Mhm.
Yeah, you're looking at the self-operated,
Yeah,
Yeah.
why,
It actually, at the risk of prolonging this conversation, it might actually be a useful nugget to include that in the updated plan. Doesn't have to be a huge, super long calculation, but just a
Yeah.
paragraph summary of this is the way transit is calculated.
Yeah.
I think
Or we
Carver
could just take
resident would find that very interesting, yeah. It's,
I think it would be interesting, Tina. I am skeptical that we could come to consensus across.
Well,
I think we could,
Yeah,
there-
but if there's a
that everybody
policy-
does it the same.
yeah, there's a
For this or
policy, and
something,
also
yeah.
for NTD,
Yeah.
Doug, there's a
Mhm.
accepted standard or practice to do this in NTD.
Yeah.
So the transit system finance people are really used to doing this. So I think it's a matter of just, all of us understanding what that is. And then,
Well,
and
Meg,
then,
there's a standard practice for NTD, but there's so many nuances and different things that each agency does, that there's arguments for how to address them. That, you know, as we're seeing in this conversation, we're really getting very granular, and we could spend a lot of time doing that unless all of the agencies commit to just, you know, going beyond the NTD guidance for
Oh,
that.
it's not yeah, we're separate from the NTD guidance, our policy is, but I think the point is none of us know exactly what's happening with all of our systems. I think it's really basic that it's like information sharing at the very beginning, I think. And then where we go from there, I probably agree with you 100%, like who knows? And who knows that we could all agree, but I don't even think we know what everybody's doing. Like, I think it's a
So-
fact-finding mission at first.
So we've got that in the minutes.
We
right?
do, and I'm recording.
And you're recording,
Mhm.
so we can definitely come back to that when we're planning a
Yes,
bigger conversation.
yes. And so we want to get back to the annual work program, the agenda. But I thank you, everybody, for your
Apologies for
comments.
that detour.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for the comments. It was good. We're
You know I'm
taking
always
notes and I recorded. So now,
Now,
as far
we-
as what, go ahead, Doug.
I'm sorry, were we ready to, we're going to finish up the conversation on the work program that the county board, I think, endorsed last night, right?
Yes.
Following a public
They did.
hearing.
They did, and there were a couple of questions that came up last night. And I just need to have a little bit more time to fully vet those and dig into how we want to answer those questions for the board. One of them was about the mobility on demand program and increasing that service potentially, which I really just want to look at closely because we just took some money out of that in the FY25 plan. And then if they're asking for more, I just feel some need to put some energy into that and look at that.
Yeah, and I think the only reason you took money out is just you don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Right. So we're looking at some things and I just want to take some time to look at that more specifically. Especially with commissioner questions, you know, we want to make sure we're responsive to those.
What were the other questions?
A question about that, and then some questions about training also, which is more on us to.
Like driver training?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's, we want to make sure that the work program that's approved is accurate and has gone through our process, acknowledging that these documents and these processes are complicated, and occasionally there may be some housekeeping improvements or updates that we need to make that, you know, maybe a spreadsheet not adding correctly or who knows. Are we going to try to address any of those more housekeeping items outside the amendment process at this point, or do we think we're safe to just if we find something that needs changing, and I don't even know there is something that needs changing, but that we can do that through our quarterly amendment process versus having to, you know, change the document that was approved last night.
Yeah, so Doug, that kind of goes into what I want to bring up. So I spoke with Sarah and Nish a couple of days ago. We've, meaning tax district, raised concerns. If Darlene wants to put up, there's some numbers that just don't match on the sheet. Part of the process was there was the transit plan liaison meetings that have been going on for a couple of months, that the goal was to have Wake, Durham and Orange have the same project sheets. Those weren't removed. The old projects weren't removed and added in the new. In some places they have been, but where the county was responsible, they didn't do that. Then there was comments to remove like Sandra Freeman's name and Liz Raskop's name and people who no longer put there. So there was a lot of concern about even going to the boards last night. One of the things that Sarah and Nish and myself said that we think a path forward, because they didn't want to put it off the agenda, which I understand, is to propose, I guess in their May meeting, a technical correction or administrative correction, which probably could be done through consent. But what we want to do is obviously tax district wants to work with Sarah and Nish and just making sure that those appropriate project sheets were adjusted, those names were removed, either updated. So for example, Liz Raskoff's name would go off and Meg Scully's name would go off, or like Sandra Freeman, obviously, the Go Triangle Board does not want to be approving documentation that says Sandra Freeman on it. That those have been adjusted, and then it would go back to the Go Triangle Board. I'm sorry, the Orange County Board in May as a technical or administrative adjustment, and then that one that's approved would go to the Go Triangle Board. So it sounds like the county had no concern. Sarah's here, so she could really opine more. And I don't know if that's an action item or not, or if that's just acknowledgement, but that's something that just kind of needs to happen.
That sounds like
Yeah.
acknowledgement to me. If the Go Triangle Board has heartburn that even on our own team that there are, people changing positions or leaving or joining the organization, and there's not an update there, then that's, their prerogative. If it comes down to a dollar amount difference that isn't going to impact any work program item from beginning. I mean, keep in mind, we're not going to be paying any invoices until after the end of the first fiscal quarter. So the first amendment cycle should catch any of that. But if there are things that the regional Go Triangle Authority Board needs to satisfy them, I'm fine with changing it and just sending it to the county board for information or on consent, whatever works best in that system. We don't need to belabor housekeeping.
Yes.
So for Carborough, the 3 long-term projects, I just want to check with you about, I think we're fine, but the total project cost at the top line and the cumulative, they're all kind of different. So the
Yeah.
2 new projects are fine, but the 3 older ones, I just want to,
And
I think because you have that carryover, I think we're fine, but for the purposes of the form.
Yeah, I would think that's, I think what Doug is saying, how it is correct. I mean, we meaning, so that information is probably from the county putting that stuff in. The tax district has literally up to the penny of what was spent based on that. So you're not gonna be able to spend less or more than that. So again, if you're
I get
have
that.
concern on that,
Yeah.
my thing is exactly kind of what Doug was saying, the actual technical stuff that's in there, but the dollars, they're gonna influx. Again, some of these were estimates at the time, I guess, or carry over from previous years.
Yeah.
So you would be fine. And again, just if you want, if you ever need like the source of truth when it comes, email myself or Paul, and we could give you the exact amount via
Yeah.
email, so you have proof and obviously all that detail.
The only reason why I bring this up is because when the town goes to adopt an updated CIP.
Yeah,
If we reference that there's this amount of transit money for
Yeah.
a particular project, and it in no way is comparable to what is identified in
Yeah.
this plan,
yeah,
we do have people in our community that will check that
Yeah.
and will reach out. So
Yeah.
that's why.
and we could always draft a letter from the tax district administration that says, as of 3/30/2025, you have this amount for project this, beginning budget, what you spend, inception and balance. So we could always do that if you need that for your council.
I mean, I think the updated agreement that we're now signing
That's right.
every year will be a way to capture
Yep.
that. So we'll talk
Yep,
through it. I
yep.
just wanted to flag it.
And the numbers that were coming up were pretty small.
Well, that's just it. I
On
mean, a lot of
the
these
Wednesday.
projects have a good amount of transit money in
Right.
them. But most of that has already been allocated. We just haven't spent it yet. We're waiting to go to construction.
Right.
But when you look at either the total budget or, which in some cases is pretty low, it's really representing the request for the upcoming year. And I just want to make sure that people can see that connection. That's all.
Yeah, these numbers were not on projects. They were.
No, they just drew them down. So
Oh,
at
okay.
one point, they had a bigger amount, but
Two
they're
different
spending
things.
down, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So,
Well, it sounds like the Orange County team and the Go Triangle team have a way to work this out.
Yeah.
And I would encourage them to even though it's going to take time and effort to circle back to Tina and certainly, you know, all the partners if there are any questions, and get those answered before we send something back to a board for acknowledgement.
Also, I just want to bring this up. I'm aware that we have everybody's global agreement. Paul, are we
Actually,
missing?
We don't have the DCHC. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sorry, we don't have the
Okay.
TPO. if I'm not mistaken.
I need to take care of that.
Can I
So
get your
we'll get you that.
$4,000 done?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think our invoices are waiting to get through that. So, I tell you what, Paul, I'll reach out, or I'll have, someone on my team reach out and help get those done. I have administrative approval to sign them. I
Great.
just need them run through DocuSign.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you have Kelly Smith's contact. She's in the legal team at Go Triangle too, so she can get
Mhm.
the Go Triangle people to sign it as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And when do we need to prepare the ones for next year?
So that would be something that comes as the work program evolves through. One thing, the reason I'm a little hesitant, because one of the things that Kelly's not on, one of the things that I think the tax district administration is willing to just kind of do, similar to how that we did the project sheets, just to make sure it runs smoothly, is we're gonna work with the legal team to maybe they will draft all of the agreements based on what you had last year. And then that way we kind of run, meaning tax district kind of runs point, sends them out, does all that, rather than, it was very chaotic when it was like, everybody just do your own thing. And so we want to try to avoid that. So as long as I get the official okay from Holly and Kelly and the legal team, we would just kind of want to do that.
And is there any way to do one agreement instead of two?
You talking about to
Like,
combine the operating
yeah,
and the capital?
Yeah, it's just, it seems to confuse my BMD team.
That I think would actually need to be an adjustment in like the bylaws.
Okay, then don't worry about it. Okay.
But the
Yeah.
one thing I will note that was missed on Orange last year was we did not do special agreement. There's nothing like the NSBRP. So special is
Special
really like when
agreement.
like the TPO needs to be involved because there's state funding or federal funding or there's certain metrics that we have on that we just didn't do. So
I'm not-
we gotta kind of review. It just means basically like somebody else would be a party. So right now, for the Chapel Hill ones, it's just Chapel Hill in a tax district or Go
Yeah.
Triangle. But where you might be getting like state funding or certain kind of right of way that might be needed for the state or federal funding, we would actually want the TPO to be a party to that too,
To the agreement?
Right.
to the agreement. So that was kind of missed on the Orange side when the county was trying to running point.
And what is the
Okay.
reason for that?
It's because that way they, the TPO is in the know for like for the MTP, the tip. So they know in advance, like, oh, this is coming, as like a heads up.
Right. So what it does is it commits us to fulfill the planning and programming responsibilities for projects that are regionally significant or are fixed route guideway transit projects.
Okay.
So it's not us taking responsibility for your project. It's saying
Sure.
we're acknowledging that we have things to do. Oh, we'd
We
love to,
can
you know,
negotiate.
yeah, what could possibly go wrong there? I'm sure we could manage to really discombobulate the work that you've put in. So yeah, it's just us taking responsibility for the things we've got to do on the federal side to bring the concurrence on those planning and programming functions, in particular for the work you're going to be coordinating through FTA. So,
Got it. Thank you.
Nish, what was Kelly's last name? Or not Nish, Steve. What was Kelly's last name that Paul
It's
mentioned?
Kelly Smith, and it's Kelley Smith. So you should have that. I think she sent you some stuff, so you'll probably have something in your email somewhere. But I
I
can
think
send you
I
her
have-
contact as well too.
Yeah, it's not popping up.
Okay, I'll send it to you, Doug.
Kelly Houston almost got it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
He's not there any
Carolyn,
longer.
or Steve and Carolyn on the agreements, just doing one, the operating is just a 12-month agreement. Just the funding is just there for 12 months, whereas capital is multi-year. So that may complicate things if we try to do it in one. That's something Kelly would be able to answer for us. So that's the only thing that might hold up one agreement for say for Chapel Hill, for example.
Yeah, Paul, the only thing is that's a wake thing and Orange
Yeah.
every year, they actually, they do update it, every year.
Okay, great.
It's a slog.
I mean, I'm open to doing it once for capital projects versus operating that gets funded over and over. I mean, it seems weird to kind of have to ask for the same thing over and over again. That's where we get a little hung up.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, and Paul, while we're at it, why don't we do this current year's and proactively do next year's agreements at the same time?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, the sooner the better, yeah, to get those out.
So we've assumed that all these new projects will be funded.
Yeah, I don't think that we might need to validate that only with legal, just to make sure, because the work program hasn't been adopted, so I just want to make sure that they have no concerns.
it can be queued up and then,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can wait to sign it till after the board
That's a good
authorizes it.
point.
I can go ahead and sign it proactively.
Fair enough.
Just
I
one more
think,
piggyback. If you
Go ahead,
decide,
Tina.
if you decide that you want the transit agency to lead the agreements, would you just send them through staff as
Yeah.
like a reviewer through DocuSign?
Yeah.
So we can do a little introduction before things go to say elect the manager and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. And then what we actually could do is, Darlene, if you, Sarah, could put this on, just as a reminder, maybe in either May or June, I'll ask Kelly to join also, just so so she's also here. So that we can have that
and she can,
conversation.
and I can add her to the agenda and she can kind of like give us a
Yeah.
little
And by
briefing.
then we'll
Okay.
know for sure if she's 100% gonna be producing the
Okay.
agreements. And then obviously if she produces them, she'll send them out to each of the partners, say, hey, this is what we're planning. And then to your point, if you want to put something ahead, you would be the one who could probably initiate the DocuSign,
Okay,
things like that.
that would be helpful for
Yeah.
us.
Okay. All right, well, I thought it was a great discussion. So I think we are back to you, Doug.
All right. So it sounds like we've got consensus on that for the work program adjustments. Public engagement and communication. That's kind of a recurring item on our agenda here. Do we have any updates there, Darlene?
Well, Nish is at the conference giving the brief about the short range transit plan. I know he's also doing the safe routes for school as well. He's briefing that. So I would say that's more engagement and communication for us because it just got approved. So I know he's
Yeah.
briefing that at the conference.
Awesome. Well, then we will turn to Steve
Oh, sorry.
Schlossberg
Sorry.
at Go Triangle. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. I don't know if it's here in project sponsor. I did want to make an offer from Chapel Hill to potentially host some of these meetings. I think it may be a good way to increase engagement and communication by just moving to different venues and providing opportunities for folks who may not otherwise be able to attend.
Great. I think that's a great idea. I'm aware that Orange County itself actually rotates meetings between Chapel Hill and Hillsborough for the board. So I think that kind of keeps that spirit moving forward. And whether it's at Chapel Hill at one of your facilities or at the meeting space that Orange County has in Chapel Hill, I think that's a great idea. Josh, can you and the Orange County team work that out?
Yeah, I'd be happy to coordinate with y'all.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that suggestion and offer. So, all right. Well, then I have been assured that the next item, Stephen Schlossberg will present a very concise financial report schedule update.
I'm going to stop sharing, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
In honor of Doug, this will be hopefully under 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes. So what I do want to talk about is the increased cost of existing services. Even before I start, just as a reminder, as I mentioned, reimbursements are up there, so please submit the reimbursements by the end of the month. Any questions on it, reach out to Paul or myself. We are bringing to the Go Triangle Board of Trustees the adjustment to the increased cost of existing service. Doug, one thing I am working on is with the board clerk on if that conversation we had about the ordinance being able to be adjusted just for it. Obviously, it works out good because it goes with the Q4 amendments, but if we don't have any Q4 amendments, it would be a challenge, or I would hate to go to the board just for this item. One thing I would note, there was a lot of confusion this year with increased cost of existing service. So at a very high level, Orange County allows 100% of the $7 vehicle registration tax to be allocated currently between Orange County Transit and Chapel Hill Transit. There is part of the 2023 documentation that allows Go Triangle to be a privy to that, but there's been no conversation from Go Triangle side to be joining that. That being said, the way the process is usually run is it's based on financial data that the county and, oops, sorry about that, the county and Chapel Hill display that they put to transit before without the transit tax information, without Orange County stuff. So what was budgeted was a 95% to a 4.5% split. When we got the documentation this year, the information brought Orange County Transit because Chapel Hill actually submits an audited document, so they submit their ACFA as part of the proof, and Orange County submits what's called a Muni report. The Muni report actually showed that Orange County share was around 1%, and their estimated amount went from basically went from 39,000 to like 5,000. And when I had conversations with Nick Pittman from Chapel Hill and Tim and Nish on it, we realized that there was something wrong, and Nish was just kind of calculating the information wrong. He said resubmitted the information with pens and you know hand marks and things like that the tax district didn't really think was appropriate. So what we did decide, working together, was we were going to use the budgeted share with the revised $7 registration fee. So as you can see, the $7 registration fee did go down slightly. It went from $7.75 to $7.65. Both Chapel Hill and Orange County were in agreement that that would be a good process to do. But one thing we did say is once the transit program is approved, again, early fall, that the OPT, Orange County Transit, Chapel Hill, so it'd be Nish, I guess Sarah might join. Tim and Nick are all going to join. Doug, I would ask you to join too, if possible. But we're going to hammer out like what is the material of increased cost of existing service that we should be using, because the information that's been using is some legacy stuff from years ago. We all agree that there might be a better process in it. So that's where we decided that we're going to go with this, and we're going to work on that in the fall. This is not an issue in Durham because currently right now, Durham has the same stipulation that theoretically Go Triangle could become a privy of it, but they haven't really put the force into asking on it. So right now, 50% of the $7 goes all to Go Durham. So that's a very easy calculation. It's you take the $7, divide it in half, and it all goes to Go Durham. So that's just something. So that being said, what you see here is the slight adjustment. So Chapel Hill's share went from 775 to 765. OPT share went from 39.7 to 39.2. So that's been the updated numbers in their reimbursement templates, and the multi-year operating is now running off of that numbers. But we do all Chapel Hill, OPT, and tax district all realize that this might change going forward based on the methodology. So any questions?
A couple thoughts here, Steve. If we do update the methodology, it will be very helpful if the operators that are participating in that bring us a consensus proposal. I would like to avoid those of us that aren't operating systems or are part of the funding distribution to mediate that. Acknowledging there will be, there will be, there are different services that are being provided from the three providers that operate within Orange County. And it's just going to be helpful if kind of the details can get worked out behind the scene. And then that comes to this group and tax district administration, because, somebody mentioned it earlier, like, it's, a research project or trying to determine what's fair and what's not. And, then the broader group that doesn't have the depth of knowledge or understanding of those calculations is asked to decide when there's an impasse. And I think that puts us all in kind of an awkward spot. Another thing that, popped into my head as we're talking about this, in Orange County, the entire $7 fee goes towards ISIS. In Durham, half the $7 fee goes towards ISIS. If the, I'm curious if we should investigate over time, as registration fees change in the state, having a static $7 fee compared to registration fee growth, which I believe is one of the options the legislature is considering, doesn't address the change in increased cost of existing services that we have right now. I'm not saying that the fee should change upwards to cover all of those increased costs, but it seems like a proportional or indexed fee would be more appropriate than just capping it at 7. And I think Go Triangles worked last year to have a change to a different fee that they collect for registrations at the regional level. So that may be an opportunity for some leadership from Go Triangle to lead that discussion. But that may also be something that we engage all 3 counties with versus just something that Orange County would take up. So those are my thoughts on that issue.
Yeah, and I think those are good comments. I agree, Doug, number one, with the Chapel Hill and OPT having a discussion. I think part of the conversation that Nick and Nish were kind of talking about is to have a consistent item. Like if it's a Munis report, it'd be a Munis report. If it's an ACFR, it'd be the ACFR. But one thing that they both agree on is there is a transit fund. So it's just really kind of working together on what's the source of data. And, and then to your point, I think when it comes to increased cost of existing service, one of the challenges that regionality is Durham and Orange both have the increased cost of existing service, and that's not something in Wake at this point. But I definitely think that to your point, there could be ways to avoid the whole $7 being utilized, because that doesn't really help for growth in the actual transit work program if it's all going every year to a specific blanket. So I agree with that too. That is something that maybe we could work at least with Durham and Orange that have that increased cost of existing service, put some kind of like baseline or determine what that amount is.
I don't know. The Triangle doesn't even get it, but I think it's important to support.
Increase.
Well, I mean,
To support increased cost of existing service.
if we had a more meaningful way to address ISIS, I don't know that Go Triangle should be walled out of that resource.
Yeah. No, and I don't know what the agency would want to do. I'm not, because here in Orange, it would mean reducing funds from others. In Durham, there's an easy path, which is just to increase the usage from half of it to all of it and make it available to Go Triangle. But I don't know what folks will want to do.
But that's what they will do. We'll talk offline in a different conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll work with all the partners are coming up with some ideas on how we think, especially as we go through this conversation with Chapel Hill and OPT. But that's a good idea, Doug. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate your brevity, Steve, and information as always. It's very helpful and insightful. Um, let's go into project sponsor updates and starting with Chapel Hill.
I don't know if I have any major updates.
What's the,
BRT planning continues. Steve, we are gonna be submitting a fairly significant reimbursement request, for Q3, just as an FYI. Still working on getting that together, yeah. Big boy.
From BRT work?
Yeah,
Oh, that's exciting.
What else is happening? We're continuing conversations with NCDOT to see if they can take on any of the project responsibilities, which would be a huge help. Specifically, some of the construction management components. Working on finalizing contracting for the high capacity corridors study project, which was funded in the UPWP. So looking forward to kicking that off with the VHB team. And then hopefully getting our short range transit plan update RFP posted this week or next week to get moving on that. That's been funded in this plan for a couple years now and just haven't been able to pull the trigger on that work. So we are close. I think in May is our next draft segment, design segment will be, which is the final one. Segment 3 should be out for draft review. Several folks are involved in the technical and policy committees for that work. And then once that's reviewed and finalized, like that is pretty much the bulk of the design work. 90% design is small refinements and bidding and contracting docs. We have we're getting an RFP out for our property acquisition services, start some of those tasks and early planning. And then our risk workshop with FTA will be in the fall. And that's kind of a big milestone prior to submitting the actual grant agreement. And Brian will be in DC in May, shaking down senators.
Good luck.
Well,
Yeah.
Caroline, thank you for mentioning that. We'll be in DC for a couple different events in May. So we'll make sure that we follow up and just while we're not advocating for anything in specific, we want to make sure that we can, be reassured that federal funding commitments are something that we can count on. So, thank you for sharing that. So do we have anyone from Mebane here today?
I don't think she's here.
Okay. Hillsborough, Matt.
Hello, everyone. So 2 updates on the train station, continue to be on hold for the preliminary engineering agreement while the indemnification items are worked out with the cities that are in the queue ahead of us. I do have a meeting tomorrow with some Amtrak executives that are coming through town to talk about the train station potential service. And so looking forward to that. And then on Ridgewalk, the middle phase of the project that's going to be constructed by the developers of Collins Ridge is in for permitting. And so that phase will be built by the developers of that subdivision. And then we have funding in, I think, FY27 for engineering design of the north and south connectors to that. So that's our 2 updates.
Great. Let us know as those projects move forward, if there's any expertise or support we can help you with there. We'd be more than happy. And actually, Caroline, the same with your short range transit planning. That's not something a lot of our staff has a familiarity with. And while I don't want us to suggest that we can add a ton of value to the work that you're going to perform, if it's something that our staff can observe, if I could have someone kind of embed and follow along and understand it, it helps build our capacity and understanding so we can support you better in the future. So thank you for that update, Matt. Tina, how are things in Carrboro?
Well, things are moving. Nothing, we're not yet at a point where there's really anything that's new to report from the update last month. I mean, the projects are still moving forward. We are still working with DOT to get a more accurate cost estimate for the Estes Drive bike ped improvements, which has increased in cost quite a bit. And so we're kind of in a parallel track with the town, working on budget and CIP information, and trying to figure out how we can begin that project. So more to come. The Morgan Creek Greenway is still moving along, as is the South Greensboro Street Sidewalk project. So baby steps, but moving in the background.
I appreciate that. Yes, I would never want to insinuate that any of these projects are easy or straightforward. We all know they're not. So even small steps are important. Go Triangle, Meg and team. How are things going with you guys?
Lots of stuff going on. Let's see. We have big service change in August for this side of the region. It's what I mentioned earlier, the increased frequency on the 400-405, which is real exciting. And that would be coupled with our implementation of RusBus and all of the service changes feeding that, which would include coming out of Orange, the CRX, for example. We're doing a huge engagement effort on that, similar to what we did with returning to fairs. Much of it will be focused on in downtown Raleigh, but we will be coming to all of the communities so that anybody who may board a bus here and is headed that way has the information on. And I always like to say that RusBus is on schedule, under budget, and someone noted yesterday that it's also beautiful. So I said, okay, every time I say that now, I'll also say it's beautiful. So we're all very excited about that. That service changes early August, and we are assuming a late July ribbon cutting ceremony. So I assume many folks will be invited to that.
Great.
Yeah, there was a somewhat related to this group, because there's funding. The Triangle Mobility Hub is moving along nicely. You know, we brought in, we filled a vacant position a number of months ago now, and that's allowed for some really good progress. And Wake County has a concurrence process on projects, and so that was held for that, which is just a nice time to get a lot of the agencies together that have some role in the approval and the progression of the project. And so lots of folks heard about the good work that's going on there and the movement that's going on there. So that's all real exciting. We have, so with the service changes, we are officially through our operator shortage. This has been huge. We've been able to hire and retain, and we're now, you know, able to do the expansion services that have been programmed for, you know, for through the transit plan to support all that. So we're moving full steam ahead. Hopefully we'll get on a schedule of our service changes 3 times a year at a regular on a regular schedule, so we can just keep churning it out. We have we're moving along the onboard customer satisfaction survey. You heard Caroline mention Chapel Hill Transit. We conduct one for ourselves as well as the 3 other fixed route. Well, no, we don't do up to. We do Go Durham and Go Raleigh and Go Cary also. And so, but our team manages that process. So we'll be doing it as well. We're looking towards probably October for the onboard portion. Caroline, I don't know if you have a date in mind yet. We like October. It's just kind of the more.
No, we don't, but I mean, I don't see why that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be enough time to plan and get ramped up.
Yeah,
probably.
so it may be that we're doing it at the same time, which could be nice. The TAP evaluation also continues. This is the Transit Assistance Program, Low Welfare Program. And this program, I was saying in an earlier meeting this week, of all the programs that I think we've seen come through transit plans, has received the most analysis. And and feedback loops on it, which is good. We're all very proud of this program, but it is a new type of program. So the evaluation continues on that, and we'll continue to tweak it. Those folks who registered last year will have to be re-enrolled this year, and those are the sorts of details that will be worked out as we progress this a little bit further. So
So what was the results of the?
of the evaluation, it's still ongoing. So the next committee meeting will be early May, and out of that meeting will be some suggestions, recommendations on how to move forward with some of these issues like re-enrolling and whatnot. So changes in some of the structures that are, pretty straightforward, like figuring out a way to ensure as much as you can that a person who might be eligible for Youth Go Pass, for example, is using Youth Go Pass before they sign up for TAP, if they're eligible for both, or if they're eligible for a senior pass, to enroll in that before they would sign up for TAP. And if they're eligible to ride using one of our partner programs like UNC Chapel Hill, or a lot of the local jurisdictions have, to make sure they're using that first. So we're going to, do kind of structural changes to tighten that up a little bit. So lots of good work on that. I think, that's about it. If anybody has any questions.
Any kind of a press release blurb for the 400, 405?
Tons of them. Mhm.
I would love to push that out. It's
Okay,
big
let
for
me,
us.
let me get up with our marketing crew. They tend to be the materials development and pushing. And, it is out for public comment now, I believe. So I will send that right now.
Okay.
Yep.
It'd
And
be
I'll include you in the email so that they know exactly who to send it.
great. Yeah, it would be great if we could get it out
Yeah.
before the council takes their summer break.
Yeah. Oh, I'll get it to you today, I hope.
Great.
I wonder if there's other areas, that's the point, that might actually find it interesting or just not even aware.
Well, it helps Carrboro.
No, I'm
Yes,
saying
yeah.
like if there are other
Nice.
areas that
Yeah.
just we're not even thinking about.
Mhm.
Right on. Well, I really appreciate everyone, problem solving during the meeting today and advancing all of our discussions very efficiently. It's always encouraging, and I feel gracious that that we have such a collaborative effort going on in Orange County. So I wanted to pass that along to everyone. Uh, see. I did notice Orange County is not on the project sponsor updates. Are there any updates from OC that we should know about?
Nope, I don't have anything right now. Do you have something?
I don't have any today. I'll bring some for you next time.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm sure you want the opportunity to celebrate your amazing work there. So we appreciate you. Our next meeting is May 16th, 2025. And wait, is that a Friday?
Did I put the wrong date down by accident? I'll change it. It's on the calendar, correct? Let me look.
Okay, so that would be May 14th.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So May 14th, 2025 at
10.
10. Matt,
Mhm.
your hand's up.
Yeah, I have a calendar invite for May 21st. So just
The 21st is the third week.
The 21st is the third week, so it should be the 21st. So that's my mistake on the date. So it's the
okay,
third,
just
it's
making
always
sure
the third.
I wasn't clear.
You're clear, Matt. Thank you so much for the correction.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad it's the 21st.
It's on the
because that-
calendar invite. I sent
Yeah.
out the calendar invite. I just made a mistake when putting the wrong date
Hey, no
on the-
worries.
agenda.
If I had a nickel for every time I did that, I'd be retired already.
Oh, but you'd be a poor person, Doug, come on. You're never
No,
wrong.
I'm very failable when it comes to calendaring. So great, everyone. I hope you have an awesome rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Did you send out your report?